Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rahul Bindlish. Welcome to this webinar today that we have on customer experience in financial services, a way to profitable growth. A quick introduction, I head sales for Grid Dynamics. Grid Dynamics as a company focuses on technology services to enable tier one enterprises in the US with their digital transformation initiatives. We do this series of webinars. We typically have one on different topic almost every couple of weeks. This particular series that we are doing today is part of our financial services webinars. We started this off a couple of months ago. We do that once every 2 months. So we have two great talks today. First led by James, which will focus on his experience in doing transformation for Voya services over the last few years with respect to their customer experiences. And then I will have a short talk on what I see as a big upcoming trend in the consumer banking industry. So let's get started. Over to James. James heads as the Senior Vice President for Customer Solutions for Voya Services. Over to you, James.
Great. Thanks, Rahul. Nice to see everybody today. I am going to present my desktop here, and hopefully you can see that. I'm going to talk a little bit today about how we at Voya are thinking about customer experience, not as just a nice to have, but really a competitive imperative. I'm going to say a couple words about our CX capabilities and processes, and then dive into an example for how we've transformed the retirement saver experience through our digital channel, and I'll share with you a little demo and a couple of examples of the results we've seen thus far, and then of course I'm happy to take questions or interact with any suggestions that you guys have. So I'm excited to share. I'll just jump right in. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the movie Moneyball, or that was the book, first called Moneyball, written by Michael Lewis, about how the Oakland Athletics were able to compete in the major leagues. And I use this analogy a lot at Voya, because we're a mid-sized company. We're nowhere near the size of many of our peers in the retirement industry, and I often say we're not gonna outspend the Prudentials of the world, and we're not gonna out-advertise the Fidelities of the world, and we're not gonna underprice the Vanguards of the world. We've got to outmaneuver them, and the way you do that is by thinking differently and getting really close to your customers and understanding their needs in a very intimate way. And I think customer experience is a great opportunity for helping Voya outmaneuver its competitors in the marketplace. Hence, over the last couple of years, we've been standing up capabilities around customer experience for, in particular, which I am responsible for. One of them is around customer experience design, another around customer feedback and measurement, customer feedback capture and measurement, another one around digital experience design, and another one around customer solutions. Digital experience design is kind of your typical user experience, UI function, where we're taking a human-centered design approach to optimize users' engagement with us through the digital channel. And if I think about customer experience design, or CX design, as taking that same human-centered design approach and optimizing for a customer's interaction with Voya across channels and functions. So you've got, there's optimizing in the digital world, and there's optimizing across channel, and we're bringing that together, leveraging human-centered design methods. And speaking of which, we adhere to a pretty straightforward methodology for human-centered design, where we start with this very crisp, clear understanding of what does success look like, what's the objective we're seeking to achieve, under a deep understanding of customer needs, tensions, motivations. So it's not just what are they doing, but why are they doing it? Blueprinting that in the form of a current state journey, ideating on solutions that will help us evolve that journey to a future state, prioritizing those opportunities, and then planning and implementing those initiatives to realize that future state. So one example of this, probably our best example to date, is how we've transformed the retirement saver experience at Voya. Years ago, when the retirement industry got underway, there was a lot of focus and attention on contribution rates, participation rates, investment allocation. And those are all things that I would consider to be inputs. They're inputs into the equation. But at the end of the day, the ultimate success for our customers is, were they able to successfully transition into a safe and secure and stable retirement, right? And so this shift from input to output, to this focus on outcomes, really has become our call to action. And we often talk about, the income is the outcome. So helping individuals understand the type of income they will be on track to generate in retirement is, we believe, much more informative of their retirement readiness than just simply showing them, here's a balance, here's how much you're contributing. And those are all important numbers, for sure, important metrics, right? And we do still track all of those things, but ultimately we wanted to transform the experience around this notion that the ultimate outcome is the income. And in order to do that, it required that we think differently about that user experience, if you will. And we had to shift from looking at today's accumulation. So I've got $100,000 in my retirement plan. For a lot of people, it's very hard to make sense of that number. Is that a lot of money? It might be the biggest savings I have anywhere, but is it enough money to last me through 20 years of retirement? And I couple that with whatever I think Social Security is going to be. And it's really hard to make sense of that as a 45-year-old, having $100,000 does that mean I'm on track? We want to translate that today's accumulation view into tomorrow's outcome. We wanted to move away from a plan sponsor perspective. So the employers whose plans we administer, we wanted to move away from thinking about just routine plan data, what are contribution and participation rates, to providing plan, insights around plan health and actions they can take to improve plan health amongst their employees. We want to move away from the big number. Voya, for those of you who may not know, we're an offspring of ING, and you might remember years ago, ING, that commercial where everybody walked around with the big number over their head. And the reality was, we recognized that number didn't have meaning for people. So we're moving away from the big number to translating that number into monthly income, which is more tangible and real. We're moving away from incremental tactics to more disruptive thinking. How do we get bold and shake things up a little bit? We wanted to move away from teaching, preaching, and reading, right? Which is kind of the old way of learning. Nobody reads stuff anymore. It's all videos and interactive engagement. And we wanted to move towards learning through behavior and play and engagement. We moved away from thinking about our website and interactions as simply transactions and moved towards, how do we deliver actionable guidance? We're moving from looking at people like me to people exactly tailor the experience exactly to my needs and preferences. Instead of forcing customers to go where we are, we go where they are. And we've started to expand our focus from a retirement only focus to more holistic financial planning and financial well-being. And lastly, moving from an outcome you can't measure to meaningful, measurable outcomes. And these were really the guiding principles behind our transformation that led us to a pretty dramatic reformatting of our retirement website, right? So if you think about your traditional retirement website, when you go online and look at your 401k, you might see balances, you might see some pie charts, you might see, contribution numbers and amounts. Maybe you see rates of return information, and we pushed all that stuff to the bottom of our screen, below the fold, if you will. And we wanted to start with the thing that matters most, which is, are you on track for successful outcome? And this picture here, I like to think about it in three separate components. On the left side is kind of the learning part of the graphic, where you can see based on your current savings rate compounded over the number of years between now and your retirement, coupled with an estimate for your Social Security that you're eligible for, what sort of income are you on track to have in retirement on a monthly basis, and compare that to the income that you would need to have a retirement comparable to your lifestyle today, right? So we took a lot of information on the back end and synthesized that and boiled it up to this pretty simple view on a dollar bill. And then on the right side, this is where you can play with this is sort of the learning opportunity and the play and learn, where you can actually move these sliders to see your dollar bill change. And then lastly, you can take action on the bottom here. And I'm going to pull up my demo, and hopefully, I think I need to adjust my share. Give me just a second to transition over. And I'm going to show you that not only, I'll show you a little bit how we can play with the demo experience real time, but we started attempting to think about everything in our experience, like pretty much every interaction that a participant has with us. We wanted to put it in the context of, oops, sorry, I shared the wrong thing. We wanted to put it in the context of what sort of impact does that have on your eventual retirement outcome. And so that's the, oh good, here we go. Just one moment. Share. So this is when the first time a user goes in, they get this little pop-up where they provide a couple pieces of information. Sorry, how am I feeling about retirement? We like to capture a little bit of their emotional state. I might be worried or unsure, or I'm confident. Maybe I'll say I'm unsure today. And then we present you with your new look and feel for your 401k homepage, essentially. And so you can see, here's the dollar bill I talked about and the sliders over here. So the first and probably one of the biggest drivers of success is how much am I saving on a monthly basis? And you see, as I drag the slider to the right, the dollar bill starts to fill up because I'm contributing more and more towards my future retirement success and retirement income. I could also extend the date at which I retire, right, to close the gap even further. Then I mentioned earlier how we wanted to put any interaction we had in the context of your eventual retirement outcome. And we said, hey, maybe you've got other savings elsewhere outside of your retirement plan. And so you might want to input your personal pension. You might have a pension with your firm, or you might have assets in an account somewhere else. And so we provide the opportunity to input that. One of my favorite is around Social Security and helping people understand that, and a lot of people don't even realize this, the age at which they retire and claim Social Security can have a big impact on their retirement success. So just this little graphic on the left here, if I wait till what's called my normal retirement age, age 67, my Social Security would be $2,200. But if I were to wait until full, sorry, my estimate here, I'm sorry, it was $1,300 to $2,200, which is the opportunity to fill more of my monthly income goal based on delaying my Social Security claim a little bit longer. And it's I can show that impact here as I start moving the needle on delaying my Social Security. So there's $1,900 if I take, interestingly, most people take Social Security at age 62 because it's their first opportunity. And look at the incredible difference, you know, $1,100 versus what they could get if they waited till age 70. Right, you see the impact that has. So we felt like, and we've seen an impact there. Another area is loan options. A lot of people, you know, don't have enough emergency funds, and we've seen in the current state, certainly of COVID-19, how that has exacerbated challenges. We've certainly seen as a retirement provider, many more people are looking to their retirement plan as their only source of liquid assets. We don't, obviously for some people, that's their only alternative. We don't want to prevent them from getting access to their money. That would be inappropriate, but we do want to give them the right sort of education so they can model, you know, what sort of an impact is my loan going to have on my future retirement outcome. And so you can, here's an opportunity to go in, there's a little bit of an education, and it will essentially step you through the process of understanding what impact your loan might have on your future retirement income. And lastly, retirement health care is another pretty powerful but poorly understood component of your retirement preparedness. A lot of people don't recognize, you know, the cost of Medicare and the cost of what do they have to pay for out of their pocket when they have Medicare, and what all those costs can add up to. And so we've created a simple little module. You know, you plug in your state, and you can model what age you want to see healthcare costs, and how much of that dollar bill, how much of that income every month is being eaten up by just healthcare costs, you know, expected healthcare costs. So I'm going to flip back to my other screen here. And sorry, hold on one second. And so actually, you know, along the lines of the healthcare, we, you know, as part of our design process, we interviewed a number of customers, and it was really fascinating, some of the things they had to say about the process. You know, my husband's closing in at 65. We started investigating what Medicare would cost. This aspect of retirement planning surprised us, right? 1 in 5 older Americans are planning to cut back on healthcare to save money. Boomers admit to knowing very little. And this is my favorite one. This was an executive at one of our employers that we, you know, whose plans we support, basically said, nobody gives workers a clue, right? And so that little interactive experience put in the context of your eventual retirement outcome, we think is a helpful way to drive greater and more informed decision-making for participants. Lastly, I didn't have a demo of this, but we took that experience and incorporated it into the enrollment process. So as people are enrolling in their retirement plan for the first time, they're able to see the decision they make in the bottom left around, you know, what sort of contribution do I want to sign up for, and how that has an impact on their future retirement income based on their targeted retirement date and income needs at retirement. So we've seen that by doing this, we've actually gotten some impressive enrollment, a lift in enrollment contribution rates. And then lastly, at the employer level, so all of those other experiences were at the individual and employee level. We transform the employer's experience. We have a special website that we've developed for employers to understand the health of their plan and the health of the participants. So how are their employees doing in terms of their readiness for retirement? So we took all that data that we created and the dollar bills and aggregated it up at an employer level and said, for your plan, this particular plan, they're on track, the employees are on track to replace roughly 83% of their income in retirement, which we would consider a pretty good range. We want people to be at least 70% or better in terms of the income they can replace. And from all of these changes, certainly at the individual level, we've seen some pretty impressive results. We've made this experience available to almost 4 million participants across 40,000+ plans, and nearly 50% of individuals engaged with the experience. More than a third took action. We saw a pretty significant increase in deferral rates, so how much they're saving for retirement. 85% when they finish the experience, they actually have an opportunity to indicate, do they understand where they're at, better in terms of their retirement readiness. And certainly almost 70% express having a positive retirement sentiment after going through this experience. So we're pretty excited about the results we've seen so far, and how we've transformed this experience for employees and employers. So I think that's all I had in my prepared slides there, and I can stop for a minute and take any questions that people might have.
So James, there is one question that has come up in the Q&A tab. You want me to read it to you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep, it says the drop-down for how are you feeling is unique and can provide real insights. How is Voya using this to customize what the customer is shown next?
Yeah, great question. So we started tracking that pretty early on because we're big believers in, it's not necessarily, being ready for retirement isn't just a numbers game. It's also a big part of it's emotional. What's your mental attitude? Do you feel prepared? If you feel prepared but aren't prepared, that's a problem. If you are prepared and don't feel prepared, that's a problem. So we want people to be prepared and feel prepared. So we've done quite a bit of analysis, understanding, what sorts of interactions are driving greater feelings of preparedness. And I will say we don't necessarily on an individual level at this juncture change what we show you based on how you answer that question. But at an aggregate level, we absolutely are improving some of the, I'd say, focusing or emphasizing aspects of the experience that we found to drive greater impact and building confidence and security in their financial future.
Thanks, James. And participants, you can use that Q&A tab to ask any questions that you may have. James, a quick question from me. How much of the effort in redesigning this customer experience was technology related versus really market research?
So the last part versus what?
Market research to understand what consumers would like, what is beneficial to them.
Right. Oh, it was, I would say, heavily bent towards kind of that, I'll call it a customer lens view. So it was market research and asking customers, and it's interesting, we have a saying, a lot of people, walk around, we quote Henry Ford, although I don't think he really said it. If you ask customers what they want, if he'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? And we like to twist that statement on its side a little bit. And it's not about asking customers necessarily what they want. It's about asking customers, what do they need, right? What do they need to understand better? What are they trying to accomplish? What do they need to make better decisions? And it was in that insight that led us towards transforming this experience. So it was very much driven by a deep understanding of customer needs and behaviors and attitudes and preferences for how they're thinking about their retirement, and recognizing that people didn't, they said that I have $100,000 in my account, but I have no idea whether I'm on track or not, right? I see this pie chart, I have no idea whether I'm invested properly, right? So it was driven entirely by that realization and that insight. You know, that frankly, the technology piece was pretty easy once we recognized, you know, the transformation that we needed to put in place. I'd say the market insight was the driver, the technology was easy. Probably the most difficult thing to do was, it was a big shift. Like employers and employees alike, it was a little bit jarring for many of them. They're like, wait a minute, you know, where's my pie chart? You know, I've been for 20 years, people been showing me my pie chart and my balance first. And so we did get some pushback early on for, you know, why did you take my pie chart and my balance away? And we had to make sure, you know, balance, we had to make sure they were able to still find their pie chart and their balance pretty easily. But we wanted to drive people towards that outcome orientation. And so it's still very prominent at the top of our digital experience.
Great. All right, if there are no more questions, thank you, James. Really insightful. Appreciate you doing the talk. Now,
Absolutely, happy to do it. Thank you.
there you go. So my talk is about the banking, consumer banking industry specifically. And if you really look at consumer banking and what's going on there, it's not surprise. All of you have been using your mobile devices more and more for your banking needs. You don't no longer go to the ATMs to deposit checks, you know, transaction balances, and many of the transactions themselves are very easily done through mobile. What you see here is a survey, but one of the many surveys really that shows there's a clear upward trend in terms of consumers using mobile for their banking needs. The graph shows, you know, what percentage of consumers are using banking for at least some of their needs. The very top line is consumers who are saying zero. That has remained almost constant, even though after COVID, it has declined slightly. But rest of the graphs are going up significantly, which is not a surprise. At the same time, what consumers are saying is that the experience is not that engaging. And here are the reasons they are saying that. They complain that even doing simple things is difficult. I'll give you my personal example. I wanted to search for a check that I had issued in the last 30 days. I was not sure whether that has been encashed or not. And I went to my bank's mobile app, and there was no easy way I could search that. That functionality is available on their website, but not on the mobile phone. And I can understand why. You know, it's not easy to create that experience on a mobile app where you have multiple menus and you go in deep inside one of them to really figure out what you have to do. There are other such examples of payment reminders, fraud alerts, and so on and so forth. They also complain that every time there is an app upgrade, you have to relearn some of the common things that you do. Again, jarring the experience that you have with the mobile apps. There's also lack of support. If you don't know how to do certain things, it's not very easy to find that out. And a few other things. You'll see a picture on the right, which is sort of captures why I say that consumers are not really intrigued by the experiences that they have been getting on their mobile apps. You go to any of the bank's mobile app and look for a statement. This is how you see your monthly statement. It's basically the same PDF that you get in your email every month. Very difficult to read. I think that experience has to be very different. And remember, in the past, To create differentiation, banks had a great ATM network, or they had easily accessible branches and a great experience that you can get if you go to the branch. All of them are no longer valid. Today, majority of the consumers expect that you should be able to do all your basic banking through your mobile phone. And that experience has to change. Your differentiation in the future is going to be based on your experience or the consumer's experience on the mobile app. And we are seeing a very interesting trend come in very recently, which is basically digital banking assistants are being launched. Bank of America has been a leader in doing this. They've advertised a lot their banking assistant called Erica, and they're starting to see a big result because of that. In fact, after COVID hit, they've added 1 million users per month. In fact, as of May, they had a total of 14 million users starting to use Erica. When I compare that, for example, total of 24 million users using Wells Fargo's mobile app, that's a significant number. Now, this is not gaining market share, this is gaining usage. But that's a precursor to market share, because if more and more users are loving that, that's a number one expectation that other banks will start to provide that. But second, there's also an opportunity. Banks who will provide that unique experience will start to gain market share. Now, it's even a bigger threat to existing players in the industry, which is very crowded, because we have started to see several new startups or technology companies starting to get into various facets of banking. Payments is something that has started off very aggressively with entry of the likes of even Facebook's and Amazon's into that ecosystem. But even for checking and savings account and loans, you're starting to see tech startups come in. So very, very critical for the banking industry to really look at how they can create that differentiated experience. And what makes this experience a game changer, the digital banking assistants, is really the user experience, which is driven by a very natural language interface that we have all gotten used to by using the chats, the social media on our phones, and everything else that we do on our phones, which uses a combination of a text, voice, taps, and gestures. Not only that, these digital assistants can really be made very, very powerful by using AI and ML techniques to personalize the experiences, using auto suggestions and prompts. James earlier talked about users are no longer looking for like me. They want to know, give me something which is exactly like me. Tell me what I want or what I need. Don't tell me what other users like me need. And that level of personalization is possible using these new digital assistants. The second thing I like about them is really their customer-centric approach. You no longer have to rely on a product manager to define what the customer journey looks like. So if you have to pay a mortgage, you go to the mortgage account, then you select a menu, pay the amount, and then go through that process. I, as a customer, want to create my own journey. I can be looking at my checking account balances, and next I want to pay my mortgage, I should be able to do that without having to jump through hoops. I talked about personalization, but the personalization can really be taken to the next level, not just about learning your lingo. Different people call it cash, different things. That's just the basic level of personalization. But these systems are self-learning systems, and they can be designed. Erica is not. I'm going to talk about what our vision is there, but they can be designed to even learn your behavior and personalize the experience better. For example, if you know that I go and pay off my mortgage on the first of every month, when I log in next time on the first of the month, it should prompt me in a very easy way to just pay off my mortgage, or just ask me a question: should I pay it off every month, and initiate that transaction without having to confirm that from me. Of course, with some intelligence, making sure there's enough balance in my checking account before it does that. That's the expectation that will start to happen very soon. And it's important to provide that experience with the users. And finally, these assistants have the capability to evolve into a financial advisor, go beyond just transactions, look at the financial health, like James was giving an example for the retirement. Extend that to my entire financial health based on the different accounts and balances in the bank, and suggest uh, options for me that may make sense from a financial perspective. And very closely associated with that is the ability to address customer service related questions. How do I do something? How do I refinance my mortgage? Now, those answers are easily available, outside the enterprise. Many times banks have YouTube videos that are available that can directly be provided as a link if that question is asked by the user. And those kind of integration with external world is possible with these digital assistants. I'll give you a demo of what I mean by digital assistant in a minute, but a quick background. To us as Grid Dynamics, we have significant experiences in creating natural language-based systems for the last 10 years. A lot of that experience is based on systems we have developed for retail search, e-commerce engines, which amongst other things also leverage various machine learning and AI techniques, also voice-based searches, image-based searches, and so on and so forth. And we have also designed several digital assistants, both in our labs for our own R&D, but also for commercial purposes, like we did for a leading floral retailer, where we created a conversational commerce platform that can be used for ordering through Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant. So based on those experiences, we actually created a digital banking assistant accelerator in our labs. We call it the banking Genie. What an accelerator for us is really a framework, an architecture, a design, and a prototype for creating these assistants for the bank. Some of its features include it being an AI-powered chat. It uses all the best practices that I talked about in terms of user experience using voice tap gestures. But interestingly, it's also cross-platform. So it code once deploy to both Android and iOS. It very seamlessly integrates with the bank's ecosystem. And when I say the bank's ecosystem, the expectation is the bank already has exposed APIs that can be used across various different functions and features. We have a few account types that are included in the prototype, but other products and account types can be added very easily. And of course, it's a self-learning system that can be used to personalize user experiences. Most interestingly, what we provide with this accelerator is really a free IP to the banks that they can use to really customize and going forward, really own that technology. Any custom development or customization that we do or you do is owned by the bank itself. So in today's world where digital transformation is key to creating differentiation, it's also important that banks own IP of many of these technologies, and this allows you to do that. So let me quickly switch to a demo. I will stop sharing this. Just share the content from my cell phone where I will launch this Genie. And you see, to log in, you can give a PIN, but it really depends on how you configure it on your personal phone. You could use Face ID, you could use fingerprint-based ID as well. What you see here on the app is I have 4 different accounts, Visa Platinum credit card, a mortgage for a Tahoe house, my main checking account, and a college savings account. Like I said, you can have more accounts interface here. They can be nicely laid out on the top. Mind you, these are not menu items. You don't have to tap on any of those to get into account type. What you really do is use the rest of the window for chatting with the Genie. You could use chat, you could use voice. I'm mostly going to use chat today. And as I click on that, you see that there is an auto suggestion that has come up from the Genie. Now, this is a very personalized set of auto suggestions. This is based on what I have been doing on Genie over the last several days and weeks. So you could choose any one of them, or you can start typing, I want to look at my bills, for example. So it changes and it brings up other suggestions that are more relevant to this. I could say expenses, and it will start to change that as well. Now let's do transactions. I want to see my transactions for my checking account. You see here, I just typed TR and it brings up a relevant set of instructions or questions I can ask, right? So I want to see my transactions from the checking account. And I do that and I see the list right away. It brings up the last few transactions that can fit that screen. But if I want to see all, I can go in there, see the entire list, scroll down if needed. I could go here and change the dates if needed. And I can go back. And now I'm here, and let's say I want to see the transactions in my savings account. I'll just show all my transactions. Now it's interesting that the Genie understands that it does not have the full context. It doesn't know at this point in time what transactions I want to see. So it asks me to choose one. I say the savings account, and it brings up the savings account transactions. Now let's go back. And actually, I don't have to go back. I was talking about now I will switch accounts, right? I have been talking about checking and savings account. I want to look at my expenses from my credit card. I tried EXP, it gives me the option to show my credit card expenses. It brings up in a nice laid out format. All of these can be changed. I can get into details of any of those expenses. But you see the experience. That's what I've been talking about. It completely changes my interaction with my mobile app. The number of things I've done in the last couple of minutes in terms of looking at transactions in 3 different accounts required minimum effort from me, and it's a very pleasing experience that I'm very used to while using my mobile phone. Let me now try a little more complex things. I want to now look at interfaces between two different account types. So let's say I would like to transfer money, and I want to say transfer, and it gives me the options. Where do I want to transfer the money from? I want to transfer from my checking account. So it asks me clarification questions. How much do you want to transfer? I say, no, I don't want that. How much do you want to transfer? 150. And which account? I want to transfer to checking. Ask for confirmation. That did not work. We'll try that again. I want to transfer from my, how much do you want to transfer? I want to transfer 150. So it asks for confirmation. I say yes, and voila, it's done. I will go back, show my transactions, the college savings account. You see at the very top, $150 have been transferred. It becomes even more interesting as you get into more complex transactions. Let's say you want to pay off your mortgage. So I want to first see my mortgage details. Show my mortgage details. What is my monthly mortgage payment? It brings it up. My monthly mortgage payment is, a little more than $1,500. What do I want to do? I want to pay my mortgage. So from which account do I want to pay my mortgage? I select checking, ask me for a confirmation. I say yes, and it's done. I can go back and show my transactions. And you see me in checking, it's showing that it's already done. Let's make it even more interesting. I want to see my overdue bills. Show my bills, brings up and shows my bills. Overdue are highlighted in orange on the left. I can pick one up and pay that uh, and look at the transaction like we did earlier. A couple of things here. You can also now make it more interesting by saying, pay all my overdue bills. And with one statement, you will be able to complete all those transactions right away. I'd also earlier talked about interfacing with content outside the enterprise, like answering your questions, on providing training videos from YouTube and so on and so forth. Those can all be provided from the same interface. You can ask that question and Genie can bring back that response in the form of a link to those responses here. It's also a self-learning Genie powered by AI and ML that will evolve over time and personalize your experiences. So in conclusion, what I just showed you is a really new way of interfacing with the bank. Very differentiated customer experience that I believe will create a differentiation for the banks going forward. In the short term, I think there is an opportunity for many banks to really use this experience uh, to create differentiation and potentially grab market share. In a few months, I would expect in the 18 to 20 months range, this will really become the new expectation from all banks. And if banks are not prepared to provide such an experience, move away from the clunky menu within a menu mobile apps that are available today, then they have the risk of losing significant market share. Uh, I will stop here and take any questions that you may have.
Hey,
Hey,
Rahul,
Rahul.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
The these digital assistants, have you seen, and I'm intrigued by the use of these assistants pretty much in banking is where I've seen them most in financial services. Are there other industries where you've seen these digital assistants really take off, and why do you think they've been successful or not outside of financial services?
A great question, James. So retailers have tried to use digital assistants for a couple of categories. One is for e-commerce, for sales, like I talked about Alexa and Google Home. Uh, at the same time, also for customer service. They see the one related to e-commerce not take off. And the reason is, I think that customer experience is a little clunky. It's not very easy to understand the list of options available for purchase through voice. Uh, but for customer service, they have picked up pretty significantly. It's much easier, even in the telecom industry, for example, a lot of calls that they receive, almost I would say 80% of the calls can really be addressed by assistants, because these are common problems that have been solved and there are easy answers to that, and consumers don't have to wait hours on the phone to get to customer service agent. And so on the customer service side, they're definitely picked up very significantly across industries. I talked about telecom, I talked about retail. On the purchasing side, not so much. Yeah, there's a question. Could you speak to the challenges for companies to adopt digital assistants for their customers? I think there are two challenges. The primary challenge being to design that experience in a way which is intuitive, that you don't have to go through a video to understand how to use it. For example, I quite frankly started using Erica 6-8 months ago. And it was very natural. I could just, play around, say something, speak some things. The assistant has to be smart enough to really direct that conversation. So designing that experience is important. Second is letting consumers know that you have something like that. Bank of America used advertisements pretty significantly, but you don't have to really spend that kind of marketing effort. There can be more easier ways of more personalized information sharing with your set of consumers. It could be either email or an update on the app itself. Third and final one, that's where we play a big role, is really taking an assistant, designing it on one end, but also implementing and integrating it with your existing ecosystem. So the accelerator that I talked about earlier enables us to launch this for any of our banks within a 3-month
period, the first prototype. That's not a lot of time to really launch a prototype into production. Uh, that's where we see our role as enabling those integrations and bringing a set of capabilities that many of the banks actually lack upfront. All right, so we are almost up in terms of our time. If there are no more questions, we will wrap up. Thank you, everyone. I see many participants today. Thank you for your questions as well. Like I said, we conduct these webinars every month, but the financial services one specifically every couple of months. So if any of you is interested in speaking at a future event, do let us know. We would love to host you. If you have any further questions for either James or me, send those across and we'll be happy to follow up with you on those. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.